The people of this nation have spoken.
Joseph R. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th president of the United States.
You ushered in a new day for America.
Kamala Harris is set to become the first woman and the first person of color to be the vice president.
We're reminded tonight of those who fought so hard to make this happen.
Joe Biden has made history. He has now the most votes ever received in a presidential election.
To our campaign staff and volunteers, poll workers and election officials, and to the American people for turning out in record numbers to make your voices heard.
I will govern as an American president. Let this grim era of demonization begin to end here and now.
You chose hope and unity, decency, science, and yes, truth.
We're always looking ahead to an America that's freer and more just, ahead to an America that creates jobs with dignity and respect, the broadest and most diverse coalition in history. Democrats, Republicans, independents, gay, straight, transgender, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, and especially for those moments when this campaign was at its lowest ebb, the African American community stood up again for me. You've always had my back, and I'll have yours.
The road ahead will not be easy, but America is ready, and so are Joe and I.
Good evening, and welcome to the Minnesota DFL Founders Day celebration. And God willing, this will be our last virtual gala ever. Now, 77 years ago, two Minnesota parties surveyed a fractured political landscape, and they came to the realization that they were stronger together than they were apart. Hubert Humphrey and Elmer Kelm led the merger of the Minnesota Democratic Party and the Farmer Labor Party. This historic merger ushered in one of the most storied and accomplished state parties in our nation. By uniting, they created a bigger tent. They brought together voices not accustomed to speaking together. And out of that came a renewed sense of purpose and a moral clarity that would change Minnesota and America for the better. Now, the fundamental idea of the big tent, of coming together, not in spite of our differences, but because of them, to forge a path ahead together, that is the heart and soul of the DFL party. That strength and understanding gave Democrats the power to lead on civil rights, on women's rights and workers' rights. It gave us the power to wage a war on poverty, to lead on protecting our planet and its special places. Tonight, DFLers, we are celebrating the founding of this great party. But in celebrating our founding, we are also marking our present and our future. And after a long, dark year marked by the pandemic, by an overdue reckoning on race and an economic collapse, we are starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel, thanks to the leadership of President Biden, Vice President Harris, and here in Minnesota, our Governor Tim Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. Now bear with me as I take you back to those dark days. Think about the 1,461 days of the Trump presidency. The scandal, the divisive rhetoric, the embarrassment, and the hate, all culminating in an armed insurrection at our Capitol, incited by the president in an attempt to overturn a free and fair election. What is remarkable, or maybe not, is the lack of any legislation passed during that time which improved people's lives or strengthened our communities. And here today, when we celebrate our Founders Day, we mark 134 days since we inaugurated President Joe Biden and Vice President Harris. Isn't it amazing having people in the White House who understand what servant leadership means? It means putting people first, not politics. Now, the American people sent President Biden to the White House and Democrats to Congress to deliver results, to solve problems, and provide just a little bit of help to those who are struggling. And that's exactly what they are doing. To continue the task of building our country back better, we need to pass the Americans Jobs Plan and American Families Plan to create good paying union jobs that rebuild our nation's crumbling infrastructure. We need to put power back in the hands of workers, strengthening unions, raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and ensuring that nobody gets left behind. We need a tax code that rewards work, not wealth, so that big corporations pay their fair share and are incentivized to invest right here in America. And we need to make a once-in-a-generation investment to advance American manufacturing, provide 2 years of free community college, provide broadband access to 100% of America, and so much more. That is what leadership looks like, meeting the needs of the American people, putting our people first, ahead of party and ahead of politics. Now, while Democrats are leading, the Republicans, meanwhile, refuse to be a part of the solution. Not one single Republican voted for the American Rescue Plan. Instead, they are busy drafting a record number of bills throughout the country to make it harder for people to vote. This past week, Republicans in Texas attempted to pass one of the most restrictive new voting laws in the U.S. after rushing the bill to the floor in the middle of the night. It's part of an assault on our democracy that we've seen far too often this year, and often disproportionately targeting Black and brown Americans. The Republican efforts supporting sedition and insurrection, which led to January 6th, and now the record number of voter suppression efforts throughout this country, are the greatest attack on our American democracy in our nation's history. When Representatives Hagedorn, Emmer, Fischbach, and Stauber were given the opportunity to defend American democracy, they chose to defend Donald Trump, the Republican Party, and a violent, lawless mob instead. Instead of forcefully pushing back against the lie that the 2020 election was stolen, Minnesota Republicans perpetuated that lie and allowed it to take root and grow within their party. Now they are blocking efforts to establish the truth of the January insurrection and leave our capital vulnerable to future attacks in a pathetic and cowardly attempt to avoid bad headlines. Now, when the United States Embassy in Benghazi was attacked, Republicans spent 4 years investigating. Now, just 5 months after our Capitol was stormed, Republicans are ready to move on in a hypocritical bid to bury their complicity in that storming. It is astonishing that the Republican Party, the same party which thought that Secretary Clinton's emails merited endless scrutiny and the wasting of millions of dollars, taxpayers' dollars, is unwilling to get to the bottom of a violent attempt to overthrow an American election. Again, leadership means putting your oath to the Constitution ahead of your fealty to one political leader, meeting the needs of the American people, putting our people first, again, ahead of party and ahead of politics. You know, it was once said that true leaders have the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. Thankfully, it is our Democratic governors who have led in this manner. And we are honored to be joined by two of the nation's leading governors who during this unprecedented time have remained focused on doing the right things, acting decisively, following the science, and listening to the experts. Their leadership has helped get the once-in-a-century pandemic under control and laid the groundwork to rebuild both Minnesota and Michigan's economies back stronger than ever before. We are grateful to have Governor Tim Walz leading our state. His mantra of One Minnesota is more than a campaign slogan. It is the ethos of who Tim is. Someone who believes passionately that no matter where you live, where you're from, and that who you love, that you deserve a government that works for you, a government for all of Minnesota. After over a year of unprecedented challenges, Governor Walz has led the charge to secure investments in our students, Minnesota's working families, and small businesses across the state that have struggled during this pandemic. Not only does his current budget agreement secure historic investments in education, but it provides tax cuts and long-term relief for working families, as well as significant investments in future generations. This is the kind of leadership we need in Minnesota, and we are grateful to Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan for leading the way. And I am delighted that my friend and fellow DNC Vice Chair is here to keynote our Founders Day dinner tonight. That woman from Michigan, as Trump called her, gave a spectacular response to Donald Trump's last State of the Union address on behalf of our Democratic Party. She helped flip Michigan back to a blue state, and despite withering attacks from domestic terrorists, including an attempted kidnapping, she continued to lead her state with resolve and a ton of success. Of course, I'm speaking of Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and I couldn't be more excited that this rising star of the Democratic Party is joining us tonight. So tonight, as we gather to honor the work of those who built this party, let us be reminded of the tremendous work we have in front of us to make real those promises we have made to Minnesotans of opportunity, of community, and of justice for all. Now, one of those people who has been doing that tremendous work is U.S. Senator Tina Smith, our next speaker. First as our Lieutenant Governor and now as our twice elected United States Senator, Senator Smith has a long and distinguished career working hard on behalf of all Minnesotans. She's traveled around the state focusing on quality health care for rural Minnesotans and Native communities, finding ways to lower prescription drug costs, expanding access to childcare, and prioritizing mental health in schools. Because of Senator Tina Smith, we are living in a better Minnesota. Thank you, Senator, for the work that you continue to do for all of us in Washington. We appreciate you being here tonight. Take it away.
Hello, DFLers. I'm here in my apartment in Washington, D.C., but I'm so glad that I can join you virtually, and thank you to all of you who made tonight possible. I want to thank all of you also who, during a global pandemic, still managed to muster the energy to help Democrats win. Thank you to Governor Walz and Governor Whitmer. You stepped up and led when the Trump administration did nothing but spread lies and incompetence. And I know it hasn't been easy, and we are so lucky to have great public servants like you. I also want to thank Amy Klobuchar for being such a great partner in the Senate. Amy is a strong leader on so many important issues, but especially voting rights. After Democrats won the White House, the House, and finally the Senate in January, Republicans around the country introduced hundreds of voter suppression bills. But Amy isn't letting any of them get away with it. So I look forward to the day when we pass the For the People Act, the transformational bill to expand voting rights and get dark money out of politics, and then see President Biden sign it into law. I also want to thank Attorney General Keith Ellison for his tenacity and strength. I'm so grateful that the prosecution of Derek Chauvin was in the Attorney General's capable hands. The murder of George Floyd galvanized a movement for racial justice across this country and around the world, a movement that I believe will lead to meaningful change. So I'm hopeful that in the Senate, we will pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, a bill that will bring accountability and fairness to policing and address the racism in our criminal justice system. And together, we need to repair the deep-rooted inequity in our healthcare systems, housing, education, and work. As your senator, I am committed to putting racial justice at the center of all our work. Now, if you can believe it, President Biden and Vice President Harris have only been in office for a little more than 100 days. And in that time, they've already delivered on their ambitious agenda to contain the pandemic and address the economic crisis that COVID brought on. The president signed into law the American Rescue Plan, which is among the most progressive and far-reaching laws in the last 100 years. And I'm so proud to have helped to pass it into law. With this law, we will get vaccines in people's arms, students safely back to school, and families back on their feet. I'm especially proud of the child tax credit, which will help lift millions of families and children out of poverty. Now we need to make this permanent. The pandemic has revealed the weakness and inequities in our system, especially for women and women of color. And that's why I went to work with Elizabeth Warren to shore up our childcare system, which was already in really tough shape before COVID-19. Elizabeth and I fought to include much needed support for childcare, for families and childcare workers in the American Rescue Plan, and we got it done. Childcare is infrastructure for families and our economy. Speaking of infrastructure, we can't let up here either. Next up is the American Jobs Plan. President Biden and Vice President Harris' bold plan to rebuild our nation's infrastructure. We need to rebuild roads and bridges and upgrade transit systems. But we also need significant investment in high-speed broadband, our electric transmission system, and American supply chains. So we're building things and making things here in America. And we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to finally address the challenge of climate change. I'm working closely with the President and Vice President on our proposal for a clean electricity standard, which will get us to net zero carbon emissions from the electric power sector no later than the middle of this century. With President Biden, Vice President Harris, and a Democratic House and Senate, we have the opportunity to do big things, and we can't let this opportunity go to waste. That's why I support ending the filibuster. The 50 Republicans in the United States Senate represent only about 44% of Americans. We can't let a small group of senators led by people like Rand Paul, Mitch McConnell, and Ted Cruz, we can't let them stop all progress. It is just undemocratic. And we can't let an arcane, undemocratic Senate rule, which was designed not by our founding fathers, but by the old segregationists, stand in the way of getting things done for people. DFLers, I am so grateful for you, and I am honored to be your senator. Thank you for all that you did for a winning 2020 election. Be safe and be well, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you, Senator Smith, for that very important message. We are fortunate here in Minnesota to have two amazing senators working for us in Washington. But before we move on, I wanted to let you all know about a special way that you can be the first to receive updates from the Minnesota DFL. To stay up to date on our party, please text Founders to 94200. Now I'm going to say that again. Text Founders, FOUNDERS, to 94200. And if you text in the next 30 minutes, you'll receive a special video message from a surprise guest that you all know. Now, a little hint, she is a member of our 2022 ticket and recorded this message specifically for all of you tonight. Again, text Founders, FOUNDERS, to 94200 to get a surprise video from the DFL and sign up to stay updated on what's happening here at the DFL party. And now I get to introduce someone who frankly needs no introduction. She is a dear friend of mine, a friend of our president, and a leader in the United States Senate. Senator Amy Klobuchar is fighting hard on behalf of all Minnesotans, from farmers and laborers to teachers and healthcare workers. Amy is here for all of us. In Washington, our senior senator has been named the most effective Democratic senator and is now taking the lead on important issues like antitrust reform and voting rights. Now that we have President Biden and Vice President Harris in the White House, Senator Klobuchar is also working hard to advance President Biden's agenda to build back better. That means historic investments in infrastructure, gun safety, and of course, the American Rescue Plan. Thank you, Senator Klobuchar, for your years of service, and thank you for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks for all you do for our party. Good evening, Minnesota DFLers. Next time we will actually be together and I can give you all a hug. I'd like to thank all of our incredible DFL leaders, our great Governor Tim Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan for standing up every day to get those vaccines out. You're going to get them reelected, right, everyone? Oh, that's right. You're on Zoom calls. I can't hear you. Attorney General Keith Ellison, incredible leader. People all over the country, the world are talking about the leadership he showed in the Chauvin murder case and how he ran that. I just kept thinking, Keith and the lawyers in the case, they didn't make the story about them. They made it about the witnesses. They made it about George Floyd, and they won. Secretary of State Steve Simon, a leader nationally when it comes to voting all across the country. And the work he's done has allowed me to lead in the nation's capital when it comes to voting and point to Minnesota as such a success in voting. And the work, of course, following in the footsteps of many, many great Secretary of States, including Joan Grow, one of my mentors from way back. And Mark Ritchie, let's not forget him. I was just thinking, who am I forgetting to mention? Mark Ritchie, also a great leader. State Auditor Julie Blaha, thank you for the incredible job overseeing our state spending, that we are currently running a $1.6 billion surplus. And I'm hoping that, she's into CDART, and we're all going to be at the state fair, so I'm going to be looking for you, Julie Blaha. Also, Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman, State Senate Minority Leader Susan Kent, soon to be Majority Leader, and all the other DFL elected officials working to strengthen our state. And I want to also acknowledge our incredible leaders in Washington. My good friend Tina Smith, who ran a very, very strong reelection campaign, finally has a breather room, did a very, very important hearing on housing just last week with the Native American community, and everyone loves working with Tina. Also, Angie Craig, what a superstar and someone I can't wait to work with again. Dean Phillips, we were just out at a semiconductor company together, working to get the Endless Frontiers Act passed. Betty McCollum, who's in a leadership position in the House at a critical time in our nation's history, making major decisions. Ilhan Omar, who took the fight to Donald Trump over the last 4 years, despite his endless attacks on her, and has stood up for the people of her district. Thank you to our incredible delegation meeting for fighting for Minnesota. A special congratulations to my friend Paku Hang for being presented with the Willard Munger Environmental Award this evening. So well deserved. And I also want to give a warm Minnesota welcome to our keynote speaker, someone that has shown Midwestern grit from beginning to end through everything that happened the last year, and that is Governor Gretchen Whitmer. I got to spend some time in Michigan, and it was where I actually not only had a debate and went to Flint and did all kinds of things in her great state, but it was where I held one of my last in-person campaign events for Joe Biden just 15 short months ago, and I am ready to go back and see all of you. I told the crowd then that we needed to come together behind Joe Biden so that he could win big, just like Governor Whitmer had done. And the people of Michigan came through. Governor Whitmer has accomplished so much over the past year, standing up for the health and safety of Michiganders and pushing ahead on crucial infrastructure projects. She did it all with resilience and grit, never backing down, even when the FBI announced that she had been the target of a domestic terrorist group's kidnapping plot. Far from a normal day at the office, but like so many women in government do in the face of threats, she wasn't fazed and she just kept working. What happens next? Well, we had the election. So proud of our record voter turnout in Minnesota. It also helped me win a bet against Michael Bennet, but, that's for another day. 3 months later, though, that threat that Gretchen faced came into sharper focus when a violent mob staged an insurrection at our nation's capital. Their attempt failed. We were all awakened that day to our responsibilities as Americans. I still remember at 4 a.m. walking to the House chambers. The only ones left in the Senate were Senator Blunt and I. I now chair the Rules Committee. That's why we were there, along with Vice President Pence, with two young women holding a mahogany ballot box filled with those ballots. And by the way, those women had the wherewithal to remember to get that box out of the Senate chambers because they would have destroyed the electoral ballots for sure. So there we are walking through the glass to the House where we were met by Speaker Pelosi. And I will never forget that moment because we had said when the insurrection was at its worst going on, when we were in shelter in a room, I stood up and said, we are going to finish our jobs. And we did. And I feel like I am on that mission ever since. I was on that mission at the inauguration where I stood on the Capitol steps and said, this is the day our democracy picks itself up, brushes off the dust, and does what America always does, goes forward as a nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I got to meet Lady Gaga. Another story for another day. And then the nation watched as President Joe Biden and my friend Vice President Kamala Harris took their oaths of office. We held that ceremony on the Capitol steps despite a lot of pressure to bring it inside or in a bunker because we had to reclaim that space for our democracy. And we are still, DFLers, doing that today. How? The For the People Act. We can reclaim our democracy for our country by protecting every American's right to vote, getting dark money out of our elections, and making anti-corruption reforms. Unfortunately, some of my Republican colleagues don't see eye to eye with me, or, by the way, the rest of the country. The vast majority of people favor this bill. Senator McConnell says our democracy wasn't in crisis. Senator Cruz was predicting chaos if we put some minimum federal standards in for election, while they have been trying to suppress the vote in state after state after state. And what I want to say is, you want to have a crisis or you want to have chaos? Well, it's chaos when you have voters in Milwaukee, most of them African Americans, standing in line in homemade masks and garbage bags in the rain. You have chaos when you only have one voting drop-off box in Harris County, Texas, a county of over 5 million people. It'd be like putting one in the middle of Bemidji and expecting everyone who wanted to drop their ballot off to go to that one place. You have chaos when you had a president that went after Republican and Democratic election officials over and over again, putting them at personal harm in Georgia and in Arizona and across the country. You have chaos when you have a legislature in that state pass a law and a governor sign it into law that says that they can't even give water to people that are standing in long lines. The For the People Act is about strengthening our democracy by returning it to the hands of its rightful owners, the American people. When I chaired that hearing, that markup, we had over 200 amendments filed. Senator Cruz himself filed 47, but I got it down to 40. And at the end, including with a number of more moderate Democrats like Mark Warner and an independent in Angus King, we all stood united in favor of that bill. That tied vote that we got that day out of that committee was significant because under the Senate rules, when we're tied, it means that Senator Schumer, as the leader, can bring that bill and bring it to the Senate floor. That's what we plan to do. As he said, failure is not an option. So stay tuned, my friends, in the Minnesota DFL. We all know this has been a challenging year, but I think we all feel that light at the end of the tunnel, or as the mayor of Duluth called it, the lighthouse on the horizon. I thought that was a little more poetic, actually. There's a lot of poets in Duluth, long winters and the like. But anyway, we see that right now. I saw it when I was in Hopkins on Memorial Day at this ceremony where I think it was probably the same script, the Flanders Field, that had been read for decades and decades, probably over 100 years. And yet the kids singing, the band, people were literally crying. Hundreds of people just sitting out there because it was the first time that they had gathered with friends and family with a sense of community. And I think we're going to feel that all over our country. There are so many things that got us to the point we are. Of course, bad things, but also good things. The American Rescue Plan and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris' vigilance in getting this done. We decided we couldn't wait, that we couldn't keep negotiating into the summer when we had to have vaccines distributed. We knew they wouldn't just helicopter, one would just drop down in the middle of Laverne, that especially in greater Minnesota, we needed the help to get them out, and that our small businesses, our stages, something I worked on back in December when I passed that, Save Our Stages. I now have a star on First Avenue, but okay, that's a whole nother story. You think about the help we needed to give our hospitals. Anyway, we got that rescue plan done, and it's been a big success. So what else do we need to do? Well, police reform, I think we know that. Immigration reform, climate change, the Americans' Jobs Plan, a trailblazing infrastructure bill to build back better that President Biden has introduced. In the words of our keynote speaker, I think I quoted her in one of the debates. Yes, I did. In the presidential campaign, Governor Gretchen Whitmer once said, "Fix the damn roads." Well, we know it's even more than that. It's about making sure broadband gets everywhere, regardless of people's zip codes. It makes sure that we have bridges that work, that we have daycare centers and caregivers who are supported. It means making sure that we have green infrastructure and we're taking on climate change. In addition to that bill, which is right on our plates coming up right in front of us, we also have to stand up for common sense gun safety reforms, as recent events in San Jose and recent shootings and murders that have taken place across this country make us realize that this is still happening right now. You're losing so many people every single day to gun violence, and yet people talk the talk of background checks, but we have to get it done. That comprehensive immigration reform bill helping our dreamers. And then, as I mentioned, we have to finally implement meaningful criminal justice reform and repair what's broken. That verdict was about accountability, and it was redemption. But we should not confuse accountability with true justice, because true justice means police reform on the federal level. And we can't let archaic Senate rules stop us from getting these things done. I believe we need to abolish the filibuster. It is not bringing people together. It's actually splitting them apart. It is not allowing us to move the country. Yes, do we get mid-sized bills done? Yes. Do we get things done in a crisis sometimes? Yes, which is very important, as we did last year with the CARES Act and some of the other things. We do that on a bipartisan basis. But these other problems are not just knocking at our door. They are right in front of us. And so we must abolish the filibuster. And at the very least, even some of our members who have not voiced support for getting rid of the filibuster are in favor of the talking filibuster, which would require the Republicans to stand and speak instead of hiding under their desks and not dealing with the issues of our time. Before I go, I want to talk a little bit about my dad. My dad loved the DFL. He loved going to events and meeting all of you. I bet some of you who are watching remembers him speaking or going up or giving you a bumper sticker. And in fact, one of my earliest memories of him with campaigns after he left the paper so he could help me, he became obsessed with the fact that we didn't have Veterans for Klobuchar bumper stickers. And he was a very, very strong believer in veterans, a veteran himself. He served during the Korean War, but he was stationed in Germany. So he just made these bootleg bumper stickers in the first Senate campaign that said Veterans for Klobuchar. And he brings them to the campaign manager, and they're like, Jim, you need to have disclosures. You need to have disclaimers. There are laws. And so he makes the case, and a week later we have these now official with disclosure and disclaimers, Veterans for Klobuchar bumper stickers. But I always was suspicious that he kept his stash of his bootleg stickers and basically gave them out whenever he wanted to. The other thing I remember was Al's story, actually, way back about when Al started running for the Senate. And he said, if I went to an event and Amy wasn't there, her husband John would be there. And if John wasn't there, their daughter Abigail wasn't there. And if Abigail wasn't there, then her dad Jim would be there. And if Jim wasn't there, I'd say, why am I here? And it was really a family affair. And he loved being out there and talking about not just me. I think many of you heard him speak, knew he talked a lot about the bigger issues of the day. And it just gave him this opportunity, all of you did, to do that. The end of his life, he struggled with Alzheimer's. But what I thought was really cool is his caretakers at the assisted living, who I grew to love, they said he was still telling stories to the end. And I would say, well, they're not all quite true. They said, we don't care. They're true to us. And we've learned so many new words. They had a dictionary out because he was talking to the end. So for anyone that's struggling with that in their family, I hope that gives you some solace. And I just want to thank all of you. This has been a year like no other. We made it through an election. We made it through an insurrection. We made it through a pandemic. And you guys never gave up hope in our country. You never gave up hope that anything and everything is possible. So let's take that spirit into this next summer where we're going to be able to connect with people that we missed for so long. But let's also take it into the next election, where where we've got to win and win big. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Senator. Amy's work to strengthen our economy equitably and sustainably is a reflection of our core values as DFLers. And we are so lucky to have her represent all of us here in Minnesota in Washington, D.C. Now, I am proud to be able to introduce the Willard Munger Award for Distinguished Environmental Stewardship. This award represents the continued legacy of DFL leaders who have gone above and beyond in their work to protect and preserve our environment for generations to come. This year, I am so proud to announce that the winner of the Willard Munger Award is my good friend, Paku Heng, the co-founder of the Hmong American Farmers Association, an organization that's focused on building wealth among Hmong American farmers and their families. Hmong farmers make up the majority of stands in the Twin Cities farmers market, but still often face barriers in accessing land and financial support. That is why groups like the Hmong American Farmers Association are so important to the state of Minnesota. Thank you, Paku, for your years of environmental stewardship, your dedication to progressive values, and your service to not only your community, but to the Minnesota community, Paku. Thank you so much.
I first got to know Paku when she was just conceiving of the Hmong American Farmers Association. She had seen firsthand the challenges that Hmong American farmers were facing because they didn't own farmland or have long-term access to farmland. And she knew that if they had that long-term access, they could make better investments in the land and the soil and the water and in their businesses.
I was determined to form an advocacy organization to support Hmong farmers after I heard so many stories of how Hmong farmers were being discriminated against and exploited. I felt that it was just unacceptable.
What I think I most admire about Paku is she takes such a holistic and integrated approach to everything. So she knew that if the farmers had long-term access to land, they could invest in the soil. And if they invest in the soil, that's going to improve the water quality. And if they improve the water quality in the soil, it's going to make the soil richer, and the farmers are going to benefit.
Hmong people are phenomenal farmers, and the most amazing thing is that they've been using sustainable agricultural techniques for hundreds of years. You know, techniques such like polycropping or intercropping, and all of these techniques were practices they learned from their parents, their grandparents, and sometimes, in some cases, from their great-grandparents. And you know, you would often go to a Hmong farmer and said, you know, Grandma, how did you learn this? And she would say, well, I don't understand your question because this is how I've always farmed. This is how we farm in Hmong culture.
One of the laws that Willard Munger helped to get passed was the Groundwater Protection Act. And that act was intended to address concerns about the impacts that agriculture might have on water quality for groundwater. And about 3/4 of Minnesotans get their drinking water from groundwater. Paku's practices at the Hmong American Farmers Association farm built on that legacy. So she did projects, for instance, to help farmers plant cover crops, and that makes sure that none of the nutrients are seeping into the groundwater, and it makes sure that none of the soil is running into the water.
I am so humbled to be given an award that honors Willard Munger and his legacy, because you know, he was a man of such conviction and such clarity. I'm reminded when he passed, the Pioneer Press wrote that he was truly someone who left the earth and left the community in a better place than when he found it. And that's just, to me, that's just so powerful, because that's something that I hope to aspire to.
Congratulations, Paku. There was no one more fitting to receive this award, and I'm just thrilled that you're receiving it.
Congratulations to my friend Paku Heng. The hard work from DFLers like Paku helps us build a better Minnesota for all, but it can't be done without your support. Odd years like 2021 are challenging for us. We see significant drops in donations at a time when we need to do significant work to build up our organizing program. Now, we've done the math. And based on other off-year averages, we are looking at a 40% drop in revenue. This 40% drop comes at a time when we are facing strong headwinds. The DFL has never elected to more than 3 consecutive terms to the governor's office a DFLer. We know that midterm elections are notoriously challenging for the party in power. And in fact, in the 30 elections held since 1902, only twice, once in 1934 under FDR and the other in 2002 under George Bush, only twice has the president's party gained seats in both the House and the Senate in those midterm elections. So I'm asking you today, can you pitch in $5, $10, $20 right now to help us hit our goal of $10,000 in 10 minutes? Now, if you look at the top right of your screen, you should see a button to donate. You can also go directly to dfl.org/donate and pitch in whatever you can. $1, $10, $5, whatever you're up to, it helps us be prepared for this critical election. We are coming up in 2022, not only a midterm election, but every single one of our state constitutional offices are up for re-election. Auditor Julie Blaha, Secretary of State Steve Simon, our great Attorney General Keith Ellison, and of course our fantastic Governor Tim Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. If you believe, as I do, that they've done a great job leading our state forward, then please chip in right now, because we are at a critical tipping point in our state. We are finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel with this pandemic, and we need Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan at the helm to build our economy back better and our small businesses back stronger. We need to ensure that they continue to fight hard for all Minnesota, for one Minnesota. Now, we're going to do something a little neat here, because I want to bring on 3 of our new DFL officers so they can shout out some of our live donors. So give a warm DFL welcome to Shivanti Sathanadan, Siri Everett, and Shaniqua Johnson. Come on up.
Thank you all so much for giving so generously tonight. We are so excited to shout out a few of these great donations that are coming through to us. And oh, Elizabeth in St. Paul, thank you so much for $25 donations. Thanks, Elizabeth.
And we have Kathleen from Laconia for $100. Thank you so much. That's amazing.
We have Karen for Columbia Heights for $100. Thank you so much. Oh, wow. You guys, we have someone from Chicago. We have Jeff from Chicago giving the mighty dollar.
Thank you,
Anything
Jeff.
that you guys can provide today will help. This is going to be fun.
All right. Oh, and they're pouring in. Jean from North Branch. Thank you. $25.
Oh, gosh. Well, we have Ginger from Wadena, a $50 donation. Thank you so much.
Ron from Minneapolis, $20.
We have Bernadette from Duluth, $50. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Bernadette.
Oh, and Judith, another donor from Chicago. Thank you so much, Judith, for $2 donation. Every dollar counts, guys. Every dollar makes a difference. Thanks, Judith. We really appreciate it.
We got Rachel Sartell with a $100 donation. How fabulous.
Pat from Maplewood, $5. Thank you for chipping in.
Cynthia, thank you for giving us $50 from Shoreview. Thanks, Cynthia.
I got Deborah from Minneapolis with $50 as well. Look at that.
And we have Laird from Medina for $25. Again, thank you so much. Let's keep going.
Lindsay from Culver City, California, $25. Thank you so much, Lindsay. We so appreciate it.
Philip from Plymouth, we see you in your $100 donation.
And Rosa from West St. Paul, shout out for $25.
Hazel from Minneapolis, $10. Thank you so much, Hazel. We so appreciate it.
We got Kathy Becker, $25.
Oh, and just, Rachel, I know you gave money tonight. The money that you're giving tonight, it goes to support our candidates up and down the ballot. We know that it's going to provide a lot of different resources for our party leaders so that they can get their job done and elect DFLers up and down
Every dollar that you invest in our party helps us to put into place critical infrastructure that helps to get candidates elected across our state. So we are so grateful for your support. As we said, every dollar counts. Keep them rolling in, everyone. We so appreciate it. Joe from Los Angeles, $5. Thank you so much, Joe.
And we got Sandra from New Brighton as well with $25, and just echoing, this work is going to be so important and crucial to the things that we'll be looking at doing in the next few months. So thank you guys so much.
All right. Oh, I see John from Winona. I think I know who that is. $20. Thank you. Chipping in.
And Chris from St. Paul, $50. Thank you so much, Chris. We appreciate it.
And Timothy from Medina, again, $25. You guys are fabulous. This is really, truly just so important. And we thank you so much for your support.
This is awesome.
All right, and we have a few more rolling in.
Oh, wow.
We've got Paul from Shoreview, $50. Thank you so much, Paul. Every dollar, folks, makes a big difference for our candidates, and especially in greater Minnesota and across our state in those critical seats that we need to win. Every dollar matters. So thank you all for your support.
And just another shout out, Carol from Eden Prairie, $25. Every little bit of that goes back to those candidates. Thanks.
I feel like I'm going to have to put a call out here for our greater Minnesota folks. I need some checking in. I'm reading off these numbers. I drove 3 hours in. I'm trying to find someone from, the greater parts of Minnesota. So let's keep going with the cities.
Oh,
all right.
Asking you, shall
hey, look at Scott. We have here, what, a $25 donation coming in from greater Minnesota. Thank you so much.
And
these things are so important.
Yeah, and we also have $25 from Sarah in Burnsville. Awesome. And oh my gosh, they're rolling in so fast that we can't even get to them all.
And Catherine, thank you so much, Catherine from Minnetrista, for your generous $100 donation. We so appreciate it. Thanks, Catherine. Keep them coming in, folks. Keep them coming in. We are getting closer and closer to our goal with every dollar that comes in.
So I have a fun story about this, you guys. We're just going through and we're going to be talking through the names of folks, and you want us to say your name tonight. This is a fun opportunity, one, for us to butcher through these names, but also just to be able to have some connection with you. Every dollar that you give tonight is going to go towards great causes for our party and also for these wonderful and encouraging leaders like the one sitting next to me as well. So keep them coming, guys. Let's keep them rolling.
Okay, guys, hey, I'm back in here, but you know what? I just got some good news from our finance staff. We are so close to hitting our goal. We're just a couple $1,000s away. Keep those donations coming. The reason they're coming in is because of all of our fantastic officers here tonight. They're here with you. They want to help build this party in every corner of this state. So keep those donations coming in.
Melissa in Coon Rapids, thank you for a $50 contribution. We so appreciate it. You're bringing us that much closer. Keep them coming in. Keep them coming in.
We got another one.
Oh, let's see here. Looks like Luke from Mankato, you gave $25.
Southwest Minnesota is finally checking in the room. Let's go. Let's go.
All right, CD1's representing. Let's see here. Let's see who else can dig a little deeper tonight and chip in.
We're calling on you in every corner of the state. Represent your area of the state. Make a contribution, and let's shout out your neighborhood and your city and you. Lindsay from Minneapolis, woohoo! Thank you, Lindsay, for your $100 contribution. Thank you.
Guys, I just heard something really incredible.
What?
Tonight we are $2,500 from our goal right now. $2,500.
Wow, we can do this.
We definitely need to do this. I just need to see, I need to see at least, 1 or 2 people from Congressional District 8. I need some CD7 folks to check in.
Don't forget to.
All my neighbors in 85. Pull out your credit cards. Let's make some contributions. Let's get to 2,500. We can do it. Christine in Preston, $50. Thank you so much, Christine.
Audrey from Shoreview, $25. Just adding to the pile here.
Yeah. And Karen from Minneapolis is checking in with a $25 donation. And you know what? We're getting to that 1 minute mark. We have 1 more minute to reach our goal of $10,000. Last time I checked, we were $2,500 away. I hope we're a little bit closer now because a few seconds have passed and I'm rambling.
Let's incentivize them. What are we going to do if we hit our goal? What are we going to do? What are we going to do, guys?
I will sing. No, kidding. But just really excited to get through this space.
And remember, don't forget the PCR program. Every household can contribute up to $50 per individual or $100 per couple and get that fully refunded through the state. So when you make your contribution tonight, you'll get a receipt and you'll get a copy of that form, and you can just mail it in, and those contributions get refunded super quickly. So that is another opportunity for you as well. Give what you can, but remember that PCR program does exist. And we have some more great numbers coming in.
So this one's really exciting for me. I see Stacy from Red Wing with $25. So major shout out to my Red Wing folks for showing up tonight. Thank you.
And I've got Jeffrey from Minneapolis again with $25. And so really thankful for that donation. We're clocking down, you guys. We're getting close. We're getting close.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
I think I might have to dance.
Yeah, we
Okay.
gotta do a dance. We gotta do a dance. Larry from St. Paul, thank you for your $50 contribution.
All right, Luna Bloomington, $100.
Hey, I'm gonna dance, Luna.
You gotta do the dance. Do the dance or something. Come on. All right. Thank you guys. All right. Okay. Thank you guys. Now you see, all of you see how fortunate you are to have these wonderful people helping to lead your party. Their energy, their enthusiasm, their excitement is contagious, and they're taking that to every part of the state, to every corner of the state, because we believe that every zip code matters, that every person, regardless of where they live, needs to have the opportunity to get out and vote. And we're going to not only protect that vote, we're going to mobilize and organize on every door in every part of the state, thanks to your help tonight. So thank you for the contributions. Thank you for your support of the DFL. It's going to make a big difference for all of our candidates. Now, look, the night is not even done. We still have a lot of excitement ahead, and Governor Gretchen Whitmer will be joining us soon live. So please stay tuned. But before that, we get to welcome our governor, our very own governor, who has done so much for Minnesotans his entire term, but especially during this past year. I am so proud of his leadership. Throughout the pandemic, Governor Tim Walz has been committed to protecting the health, the safety, and the well-being of all Minnesotans, taking decisive actions that have helped slow the spread of the virus, as well as supporting individuals, healthcare providers, and small businesses in so many different ways. There's no doubt in my mind that Minnesota is in a better place today than so many other states, because Governor Walz knows what it means to be a public servant. He served our country in the Army National Guard. He worked as an educator and coach. He served as a U.S. House representative, and he continues to be a tireless advocate for all Minnesotans. Thank you, Governor Walz, for all the work that you continue to do for Minnesota. On behalf of my family, and I think I can speak for countless families around the state of Minnesota, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for giving us hope that our brighter days are in front of us. And thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate the Founders Day of the Minnesota DFL. Take it away, Governor.
Well, thank you, Ken. I'm grateful for all you do. I can't say it enough times that you're witnessing it here. Ken Martin and his team at the Minnesota DFL carry on our proud tradition. And I can just tell you from personal experience, you can't be a public school teacher and get elected to Congress and the governor without having a strong central party. And to Ken, I'm grateful for that, and to all of you who are on here. It has been a challenging year, and I want to give thank yous first to the people of Minnesota for doing what we know we need to do. We take care of our own, we take care of our neighbors, and when times got tough, we simply dug a little deeper. So I am truly grateful for that. I want to give a special thank you to our constitutional officers who make up the Executive Council. I've certainly not done any of these things alone. I did them surrounded by really great people, starting with my good friend and our great Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, our incredible Attorney General Keith Ellison, Secretary of State Simon, and Auditor Blaha. These are folks that all have jobs to do every day, but they're part of the Executive Council that made these decisions around COVID that are not easy. They certainly weren't politically expedient, but they were the right things to do based on science, and I'm grateful. That extends to my two incredible partners and leaders here in the Minnesota legislature, Speaker Melissa Hortman, and soon to be, with our help, Senate Majority Leader Susan Kent. These are folks that hold their caucus together. They ask them to make tough votes that are in the right interest of Minnesota. and they do it with dignity, and they do it with passion. So I'm incredibly grateful for that. To our members of our federal delegation, all I have to say is thank you for the American Rescue Plan. It's funny how the Republicans are really excited about spending that money, even though they didn't vote for it or don't support it. You did. So to our members of Congress, Congresswoman Craig, Congresswoman Omar, Congressman Phillips, and the dean of our delegation, my Congresswoman Betty McCollum, I'm grateful for your work. And of course, our senators. Great to hear from Senator Klobuchar and Smith. And as I always say, there's nobody more hardworking everywhere I go. And it happened to me again today. I was out doing an event at the Minnesota Zoo, and who walks by? Senator Smith. That is what happens because they simply do the work. And a special thank you to our labor partners who are here. Labor was at the heart of this. Labor was there, whether it was on the front lines of nurses, whether it was there in our schools when our children needed them during this pandemic, or whether it was our food processors who were asked to do some of the most difficult jobs in some of the most dangerous conditions. You were there to do it. And so I am grateful. And so many countless others. But I do want to take just a moment. This is our first big gathering as DFLers without our Vice President, Walter Mondale. I think the tradition, if you are in elected office in Minnesota, the biggest fear I always have is disappointing Walter Mondale, because a man of such integrity and such passion, and all of us on this meeting know, to know Walter Mondale was to have a friend, and you wanted to be where Walter Mondale was at. So a lifetime of service shaped so many things in our state and country, and did it with good humor, compassion, and decency, things that are needed in greater supply. And so as we think about what comes after COVID, COVID exposed many things. It exposed our health inequities. It exposed inequities in education. It exposed gaps in things that we can do better. But it also gave us the opportunity to rally around things, to know that we take care of our neighbors, to know we follow science, to know we innovate. And I, for one, do look forward to a future where we start to take those principles and we apply them to how we make education better and truly make one Minnesota. It's not good enough to say we have great public schools if students of color are falling between the cracks. It's not good enough to be home to the Mayo Clinic and some of the best healthcare systems if people can't access it. It's not good enough to have high vaccination rates if we're leaving our people of color behind. That's not who we are. That's not who Minnesota is. And it's not good enough to be a state where we can't turn away from the fact that systemic racism is impacting people, whether it was George Floyd's murder on the streets of Minneapolis or Dante Wright or so many others. We know that now we're going to call these things out, and there's a call to action to do something about them. Now is our moment, as the world watches, to transform our state into one that's simply not good for some people. It's good for all people. So I, for one, am grateful for the work that's been done on that. I'm grateful for the folks who are out there doing it. And I have to tell you, I say it often, I'm proud to work in a bipartisan manner, but I think we all need to acknowledge it's very difficult to find common ground when you're working with people who won't acknowledge Joe Biden's the president. Very difficult to find common ground with people who think COVID was nothing but the flu. It's very difficult to deal with folks who are willing to shut down government because they're not going to allow us to move into the future by reducing our carbon emissions and moving towards more energy efficient electric vehicles. So we have to just simply acknowledge the things that we know need to get done. It's hard to get it done in the moment. But the good news is this: we're at the once every decade redistricting, and we have a midterm election that will set the tone for Minnesota for the next decade to come at least. And so there's times, and I'll work and continue to work to find bipartisan solutions, but there's times to just recognize we need to elect people who share our values, a value that social justice issues matter, that environmental issues and vision for the future matter, and that decency and respect of our electoral system matters. So I can't tell you how grateful I am for the DFL, for all of you being on here. I know it gets tiring as we're back, we're asking, and the enthusiasm people are showing and the donations you're giving, but elections are a means to an end. And that end is a country that is fair, better, and lives up to our ideals. The only thing now is we don't have to paint a picture of what the world looks like if we don't win. We saw it on January 6th. And our next guest, who you're going to get to hear, is someone who stood in the teeth of this. And no matter what the threats were personally or to her family, Gretchen Whitmer stood up to that and showed what a passionate, progressive, decent leader looks like, and led her state through some of the most trying times. And I can tell all of you here today, there's so many people that I lean on, but one of the things is there aren't very many that know or have to make the decision that governors make. And when governors get on to talk, and there's groups of us that do that, no one comes on more respected. And that includes with the Republican governors than Gretchen Whitmer. She has led her state at a time of challenge. She's led them through the COVID. They too, in the state of Michigan, deal with the systemic inequities that hit communities. And it's been Gretchen Whitmer who stood there at the front of that. So it is an incredible privilege for me to introduce not just the governor of Michigan, not just an incredible leader, but someone I'm proud to say that over the last several years has become a dear friend and confidant. Please welcome Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
All right, thanks, Tim. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here with all of you in Minnesota. I was hoping we could do this in person because I would love to come visit, but I'm excited that we can do it at least this way. And everyone that I've gotten to see on tonight's program has just been fantastic, especially the three women who were doing the call-a-thon. So I am really excited to join you for the DFL Founders Dinner. We're here to commemorate the day in 1944 when the Minnesota Democratic Party and the Minnesota Farmer Labor Party merged, forming the DFL, an acronym that would go on to confuse people for generations. So I want to thank the Minnesota DFL Party for the invite. And it's great to speak alongside people like Senators Klobuchar and Smith, from that woman in Michigan, as Donald Trump used to call me, to those women in Minnesota and all of you. It's an honor, truly. And of course, Ken Martin, the chairman, and my fellow vice chair in the DNC, I appreciate your leadership, not only in Minnesota, but across America, to build up state parties. A huge thank you to all the staff who put this together, because we know there's a lot of people behind the scenes who are making this happen. They're the unsung heroes of the event, and so many like this event. And a hearty Midwestern welcome to all of our esteemed guests. But first, I want to talk about my friend Tim Walz. I've had the privilege of calling Tim a friend. We have a lot in common. We're both Midwestern nice. We have interesting relationships with our legislatures. At least you have the House in Minnesota. And Tim may be one of the few governors who has a penchant for colorful language like I do. We chat all the time with our Midwestern Democratic governors. And I got to tell you, as I think about navigating 2020, leaning on my fellow Democratic governors was absolutely essential to getting through this. It has been challenges unlike we ever could have imagined. It's been me, Tim, and Tony Evers in Wisconsin, and JB Pritzker in Illinois. And Tony doesn't swear as much as the rest of us. He's pretty Midwest nice. And JB won't stop going on and on about Chicago. We get it. You won the World Series once in a century. Over the past year, though, seriously, I have come to rely on my fellow governors as we navigated COVID-19, especially in the early days of the pandemic. We had more questions than answers. We had a White House that was undermining our efforts to save lives. And I was so glad to have fellow governors I could call who were looking at the same data and having to weigh the same excruciating decisions. My fellow governors and I built a wonderful working relationship with one another, and also became really good friends during those calls. And it's hard not to like a guy like Tim Walz, hailing from Butte, Nebraska, a town with less people than there are on this Zoom call. He taught high school history for 20 years. You all know Tim better than anyone. The Army National Guard for 24, state champ winning football coach. And on the weekends, tinkering with his vintage SUV. I'm told it's a 1979 Harvester Scout. I'm gonna have to Google that one. Anyway, arguably his least impressive accomplishment was serving in the House of Representatives. That's a joke. During his time on Capitol Hill, though, Congressman Walz built a reputation as a fierce defender of veterans on the VA committee, developing an incredible constituent services program, and was a bipartisan deal maker. He's also always on time, another thing we have in common. I heard that last year he showed up before the media to one of his own press conferences and delivered his remarks 3 times. The simple truth is, Tim is tough as nails, and he's real. And he's a terrific governor. And I know we share the same governing philosophy: get things done that make a difference in people's lives right now. We both know that, to quote a famous Minnesotan, we all do better when we all do better. Tim, I treasure our friendship, and I know Minnesotans value your leadership. And I think the reason we get along so well is because our personal stories are similar. Like all of us, right? We're cut from similar cloth. We've worn a lot of hats during our lives and adapted to changing circumstances by staying focused on getting things done and caring for our families and communities. Now, you may know me as Governor Whitmer from Michigan. Some people tell me I've got a cute Minnesota accent. I take it as a compliment. I'm not sure what it means. I don't hear anything. But of course, I've earned some other nicknames over the course of the last year in particular. When the former president called me that woman from Michigan as an insult, we turned it into a cause of action and a shield. Also, people who might have found out that I'm a big fan of Shark Week. And if you don't know what that's all about, Google it and you'll see I really do like colorful language. But I think the story that I'm trying to tell is that we're ordinary people, right? In extraordinary jobs. I worked at a lumber company. I was a cashier. I stocked shelves at Target. I waited tables at the Royal Fork Buffet. Went to law school and had no idea I would ever run for office one day. But my parents were lawyers and public servants. And so I went on to serve in the legislature, in the House and in the Senate, and as the first woman leader in Senate history in Michigan. And in 2018, like Tim, I was honored to be elected governor. And I'm proud of all these professional achievements, and they've all been a part of the life that shaped me. But nothing was more important in the life that shaped me than my lived experience, like all of you. You know, I'm a member of the sandwich generation, and some of you probably know what I'm referring to. As a young mom, I was taking care of my first daughter at the beginning of her life, and my mom at the end of hers when she was dying of brain cancer. So I was sandwiched between them. Taking care of 3 generations of people, my mom, myself, my daughter, it was one of the most challenging and stressful periods of my life. But I learned to grit my teeth, to do the work. I found out that I could handle whatever life was going to throw at me. And it gave me perspective and confidence that I carried into the legislature and beyond. Taking on my mom's insurance company when they wrongly denied her chemotherapy was something that I drew on years later as we worked to expand Medicaid in Michigan, now covering 900,000 people in my state. So when I ran for governor, I knew this job would be hard, but no one could have anticipated what 2020 would bring. In the last 15 months, my administration and I have led Michigan through colliding crises, a historic flooding event, a 500-year flooding event. 2 dams were wiped out in the middle of the pandemic, powerful calls for racial justice, and a global pandemic on top of a divisive election. And we got through it by drawing on experiences of taking care of my mom and daughter. And I know that so many women and ordinary people have more strength and grit and resolve than they often realize. We've seen countless examples of that over these last 12 months in particular. Experiences I had as a daughter and a mother, working woman, and the same experiences that Tim has had as a father, a teacher, and a soldier, that's what's directly impact our ability to govern in these tough times. And so many of us are capable of rising to this challenge and have, and we thank you for that. Our ordinary lives have made us good at our extraordinary jobs. And the entire country saw firsthand the value of competent, unflappable leadership during this pandemic. We didn't see it at the federal level, we saw it at the state level. Amidst what can charitably be described as a lack of a national strategy, and more accurately be described as weapons-grade incompetence, it was governors and local leaders that stepped up. As confusion mounted and people wondered how to keep themselves and their families safe, someone had to fill the leadership vacuum. It really was the year of the governor and the mayor and the leaders at the local level. And the Midwest governors really stood out. In Illinois and Wisconsin and Minnesota and Michigan, people saw what effective leadership looks like. And in the Dakotas and Iowa, they saw the other side of the coin. Governor Walz's COVID response has gone above and beyond. Now, the beauty of Democratic governors is We lead with humility. We know we're not epidemiologists or public health professionals. Unlike some who are in office, we seek out the smartest people we can find, and we listen, and we challenge one another, and we help one another. We understood, as Walter Mondale once said, if you are sure you understand everything that is going on, you are hopelessly confused. So when a once-in-a-century pandemic hit, we listened to medical experts and led with data to save lives. We didn't pretend it was just the flu. We didn't scapegoat our Asian American brothers and sisters. We didn't say things that sounded good, but didn't have any basis in science, like ingesting hand sanitizer. We told people the truth, especially when it was a hard truth to tell. Just like we did in Michigan, Governor Walz and his administration took COVID seriously from the start. Decisive action to save lives and communicate constantly with the public through countless press conferences. And now Minnesota has one of the most efficient vaccine rollouts nationwide. For what it's worth, Michigan has administered 1.5 million more doses, but hey, who's counting, right? I'm just teasing. You should expect us to. We got a few more people here. And it remains one of the best states to live in. Minnesota remains one of the best states to live in and raise a family according to multiple national rankings. That's a testament to good leadership. So is passing a bipartisan budget, increasing education funding, expanding local government services, and protecting healthcare access for 1 million lower income Minnesotans. So is going from a $4.5 billion projected deficit to $1 billion surplus. And so is standing up for justice and facilitating a long overdue conversation on race. And so is enacting a clean car standard and pushing for carbon neutrality by 2050. That's what's happening in Minnesota. That's something you're all a part of, that you all are incredibly important to. Minnesota has exceptional leadership at the state and federal levels. Yeah, Governor Walz, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, AG Keith Ellison, Secretary of State Steve Simon, State Auditor Julie Blaha, and Senators Tina Smith and Amy Klobuchar. Tim, Peggy, Keith, Steve, Julie, Tina, and Amy sounds like a group of forgotten characters from a John Hughes movie. In 2022, Governor Walz, LG Flanagan, AG Ellison, Secretary of State Simon, and Auditor Blaha are all up for re-election. Elections in Minnesota and Michigan have certainly gotten more competitive over time, but I have no doubt that this crew of capable leaders will be able to win. But there's a reason that the DFL hasn't lost a statewide race since 2006. I mean, just look at the field of Republicans they're running against them in 2022. It's a field of conspiracy theorists and quacks. It's the B team, junior varsity, not even close. You had a COVID-denying doctor who called for an end to masks in October of last year. The only thing he's won is PolitiFact's Lie of the Year for saying hospitals were overcounting COVID cases to make money. You got My Pillow guy and noted insurrectionist Mike Lindell, his attorney, running for AG. Unbelievable. And heck, they haven't even found a candidate for the LG slot on the ticket yet. Peggy, you're scaring him off. Keep it up. And Julie, your TikToks alone are better campaign ads than anything they could produce. Keep it up. This crop of Republican candidates are the furthest thing from Minnesota nice. They're Minnesota nuts. To win in 2022 in Michigan, Minnesota, and across the Midwest, we have to work together. It starts with the work of our state parties. You have Chair Ken Martin at the helm, and that is amazing. He's a vice chair in the DNC, president of the Association of State Democratic Committees. To win Minnesota across the Midwest and nationwide, we have to build strong state parties and a grassroots movement to get communities involved in the local, state, and national levels. Ken and the dynamic party chairs in the Midwest, like Ben Wickler in Wisconsin, Liz Walters in Ohio, Labora Barnes here in Michigan, among others, they are at the core of these efforts. We're going to win, and we're going to win the right way, by listening, by engaging, by inspiring people. The bond between Michigan and Minnesota is unbreakable. Sure, our football teams compete for the little brown jug, and we'll probably have to make a bet. And yes, so many Minnesotans spend their summers in the Upper Peninsula, it seems like you might be trying to annex it. And undoubtedly, the competition for best looking governor in the Midwest is heated, and regrettably, Tim is winning. But don't count Tony out. Those glasses he wears are so dashing. But I know we have the same values. We've dealt with the same crises. We have the same dreams for our states, the same dreams for our people. We want our states to be a good place to live, to raise a family, to send our kids to schools from K-12 and beyond. We want the air to be clean and our lakes to be clean. From the thousands across our states to the great ones in between, those lakes need to be protected too. We want to fix the damn roads and beat the damn virus. We want to make a difference in people's lives right now. Because that's what Democrats, whether you're in Minnesota or Michigan, do. We get things done. So thank you all for your support of the DFL. And thank you for everything you're doing to help re-elect your incredible state leaders, beat back this pandemic, and build back better together.
Thank you so much, Governor Whitmer, for joining us virtually from Michigan. It's leaders like you and our Governor, Tim Walz, that are guiding us on how to put people first, how to invest in education and infrastructure and jobs. We are fortunate to have great progressive neighbors as we work to keep up that Midwest blue wall. So thank you for your partnership. Thank you for joining us here tonight. I look forward to our work together. Governor Whitmer is also a national party officer, and I am looking forward to working with her over these next 523 days left to make sure that we are electing Democrats up and down the ballot in every part of this country. So thank you, DFLers. That concludes our program tonight. Thank you for joining what is hopefully, again, our last virtual Founders Day Gala. We know that this past year has been unimaginably difficult for most everyone. So thank you for helping to keep us afloat during difficult times and staying dedicated to the future that we can build together. We appreciate you being with us in this fight and standing with us each and every step of the way. See you soon, Minnesota, at our next fundraiser, which will be in person. Thank you for being here tonight. Have a great evening.